It was all grey that afternoon in the university's grand old hall, a place meant for bright futures, but in my memory it's just cold marble, cold stairs, and that echo of too many shoes shuffling out before me. I can still see the committee, 3 old men and 1 woman, all of them stiff in their folding chairs pushed behind the lacquered desk. The slide at the front was frozen on my last PowerPoint frame. Project Panda Personal Analytics for Next Day Automation. I'd made the title bounce in with a little animation, hoping it would feel lively. I'd worn my best shirt, the one that never quite fits at the shoulders. Still, I was sweating through it. I finished my pitch. The room sat still for 3 heartbeats. Professor Cardozo leaned in just a little. "It sounds ambitious, Hernan," he said, the word like a shoe scuff on glass. "But how exactly do you intend to build such a system with current resources, and who, beyond students, would possibly need it?" I stood there with my gadget demo, half-finished, buggy, built on Python code patched together the night before. Behind them, sunlight cut through banks of speckled glass tiles, radiating out through columns and chandeliers, coloring the world soft and diluted as if nothing could possibly matter much. Other startups, tech companies, I tried. Teams that work remotely, researchers with too much admin, people need help organizing the chaos, automating boring work. He blinked blankly, one of the others cleared his throat. "Thank you, Mr. Torres. We'll discuss and let you know by the end of next week." No emotion except relief that I was done and they could move on. The door clicked behind me as I left. Outside, I heard a snicker from 2 students who'd been in my entrepreneurship workshop, a smirk flickering across their faces. I drifted to the courtyard, watching pigeons zigzag across the cobblestones. My fists burned with the urge to throw something, but I just stood there, listening to distant honking on Avenida Cordoba and the clatter of cafe chairs being stacked nearby. I breathed in slow because I had to, out slower because anger wasn't going to make them take me seriously. I waited through the whole week. The rejection email finally arrived Friday, 7:13 p.m. "We regret to inform you that your proposal lacks clear viability and scalability. Should you wish to submit again, we advise establishing more realistic goals." I thought of forwarding it to my mother's Gmail or texting it to my cousin Nacho, the one who'd loved recounting every time I'd failed a test as a kid. Instead, I closed the laptop, lay on my bed, and watched the ceiling fan swing shadows across plaster cracks. The story doesn't speed up after that, it slows, it sinks. I saw my father standing in the kitchen, mouth pinched as if he were about to spit out a pit but couldn't, so he pushed the conversation in another direction. "You need a job, Hernan. Not another one of your grand ventures." His hands kneading dough for empanadas, eyes never meeting mine. "I know, Papa." Outside, the city toasted to summer, and gardenias climbed and spilled over every old fence. Car horns, singing street vendors, kids playing football in the concrete lots between apartment blocks. It all buzzed and hummed, but inside I felt disconnected, like only the glass of the window separated me from a life I wanted. I humored my family. I took a job at a call center, answering insurance questions for nervous Americans in the middle of the night. The calls blurred together, accident claims, dental payments, disputes over Clause 17b. The dreams faded in the daylight, but every morning before sleep, I'd sit by the window, sketching APIs and diagrams on napkins, voice notes to myself in a hoarse whisper. At dinner, my brother Macias would nudge me. "You're still scribbling startup stuff, no? What's next, going bankrupt on virtual toasters?" I tried smiling, but it never reached my eyes. "Maybe, or maybe the toasters will sell themselves." He shrugged, unconcerned, and Ma would reach for my hand, gentle but imploring. "Mijo no to-dos puden Sir Mark Zuckerberg." "I know, Ma." But every evening, anger simmered under my skin, not at them, but at the impossible wall between me and what I saw in my mind. Serenity was a veil I stitched together thread by thread. I had to keep going. At work, I watched systems fail, teams struggling with spreadsheets and manual processes. There was truth in my dream, no matter who doubted it. The breakthrough came by accident, as real things do. I was troubleshooting insurance payment logs and realized I could write a little Python script to automate chasing up missing paperwork. I tested it during my midnight shift. Suddenly, a task that used to eat up an hour of my time each night was done in seconds. My metrics soared. That crack in the dam, just a trickle at first, became a current. I built on it, turned it into a starter SaaS dashboard, and brought it up with an American supervisor during a Zoom feedback session. He was skeptical but curious. "Think you can turn that into something the rest of the team could use?" I said yes before thinking, translated my scruffy code, made it run prettier, added templates for other mundane tasks. They paid me a bonus but didn't want more. Still, that first check, $200, nothing and everything, sat at the bottom of my bank app like proof I wasn't crazy. I registered a sole proprietorship, learned how to code on weekends, real coding, not just glued together bits. I built in public, joining tech forums and open source groups to get eyes on my work. Some posted useful feedback, most ignored me. I kept going, more out of anger than hope, sometimes that instinct to prove everyone wrong. At family asados I still heard the barbs. My cousin Nacho at the grill tossing morsilla. How's Hernan's little robot company coming along? Got any rich robot clients? I made a joke back, hiding the stings. The plates clattered, laughter roared, and I learned to let it slip over me, anger yielding to something cooler, more sustained. 2 years blurred by, late nights, missed birthdays, the ache of always needing more money for servers, subscriptions, cold coffee in a shared office with peeling paint and too loud fans. I tried to block it out. Just build, I told myself, just finish one thing after the next. In that nowhere space between anger and serenity, things moved. My MVP, Panda, went live in beta and caught the attention of a small tech blog in the States. With that came my first real customer, a distributed marketing agency in Chile, 40 remote employees buried in repetition and email threads. They paid monthly. I hired one freelancer, then two. Suddenly I wasn't alone at the console anymore. My family didn't believe me, not really. Nacho smirked, my brother nodded, Ma smiled as if she didn't fully understand. That's nice, me. But will it last? I wanted to scream sometimes, but I learned the discipline to say, vamos a ver. There were setbacks, 2 big customers cancelled in 1 month, a server upgrade wiped production data. Taxes ate through a whole quarter's revenue because I'd failed to budget like a real business. On those nights, I'd take the long route home through narrow Palermo streets, watching bars fill up with kids my age who seemed lighter, looser, unburdened by the hunger I carried. 3 years after the committee rejection, Panda hit $50K in annual recurring revenue, mostly small companies in South America, a few odd clients in the States and Spain. I moved out, got an apartment with creaking windows and a view of the Rio de la Plata visible beyond rooftops in the pink light before storms. Still, when neighborhood kids asked what I did, I shrugged. Explaining SaaS systems for workflow optimization was like speaking Martian. Then the pandemic came and everything changed. Suddenly, the world worked like I always had. Online, asynchronous, lost in clouds of tasks and desperate for order. You couldn't sell fast enough, dozens of teams from everywhere, sometimes leaving frantic messages in broken Spanish or English, needing help now. I worked 20 hours a day sleeping in my desk chair. The app broke twice. Each time I fixed it, usually with cold tears of rage and that eerie quiet that comes when the city goes still at midnight, except for the hum of neon and ambulance sirens drifting from Callao. By the time the world settled, Panda had 5,000 paying users. International banks, remote agencies, NGOs, big names and little ones. Some nights I'd lie in the dark and wait for the impulse to call my father and say, "See, it worked." I didn't, not for a long time. Instead, I grew into the quiet confidence of knowing I'd survived, not in spite of but because of the mockery and doubt. One spring afternoon, I got the email. The university wanted to invite distinguished alumni to speak at the annual Entrepreneurship Summit. They'd heard of Panda through local tech press, now Argentina's fastest-growing SaaS, one of the few homegrown platforms spreading abroad. Professor Cardozo signed the invite. It would be an honor, Hernan, for our students to meet with you if you are available. My hands shook above the keyboard. For a second, I wanted to write the most furious, petty reply. Are you sure it's viable now? But I let the moment pass. Thank you, I wrote. It would be my pleasure. The hall looked the same, faded stone, high ceilings, the resin of old wood and chalk dust in the air. But this time I stood on the front stage, not behind the committee desk. Rows of students, faculty, even my brother and mother in the back, squeezed beside Nacho in a too tight suit. They let me go last. I talked through the same story from rejection to launch, pausing every so often not to preach, but to show my screenshots, revenue graphs, customer case studies, adoption from Spain to Mexico, live demo just for the effect. My voice trembled, but not from fear, from feeling the old anger drain away, replaced by a peace I hadn't known before. I finished and stepped to the edge of the stage, making eye contact with Cardozo. For a heartbeat there was silence, a different chill from years before, then applause not just perfunctory but real rising from students, then rippling even to the professors. Professor Cardozo stood, walked up and offered his hand. Mr. Tors, Hernan, I admit I underestimated the world's need for automation, truly impressive. In the audience, Nacho's mouth actually dropped open, my brother thumped my shoulder and my mother wiped a tear with the edge of her scarf. The committee room after, where they ushered faculty, press and some family, was fluorescent lit and crowded. I saw Nacho suddenly sheepish. He shook my hand, half joking, guess you made the robot empire after all, primo. I looked at him, really looked, not just for the old smirk, but for the hint of pride beneath the self-mocking tone. Yeah, I said, and it's only just starting. Later I stood in the courtyard under a jacaranda tree, violet blossoms drifting down. Ma hugged me close, both of us silent, nothing needing to be said. The city buzzed on, kids yelling through alleyways, vendors calling out, and the old stone of the university echoed with footsteps of people passing, some dreaming, some doubting. I closed my eyes, breathed in the heavy scent of flowers and fresh rain, and let the last of my anger fade. In its place, serenity settled, not the serenity of giving up, but of coming home knowing I'd changed and brought proof with me. When I walked back through the gates, something in the street's bustle felt different. I was no longer outside looking in. I was just another piece of Buenos Aires, flawed, striving, breaking out and returning, always moving forward, never quite finished. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself a real, unguarded smile.